Don't, Mr. Ambrose commanded. They can't hit us. The metal container shields us from any gunfire. As long as they're behind us. Yes. What happens when they realize that they could probably catch up by jumping off and running after us? Mr. Linton. Yes, sir. One of the advantages of being silent is not giving your enemies any ideas while they might be in hearing distance. Now be quiet. Yes, sir. Asterisk tilde asterisk tilde asterisk asterisk tilde asterisk tilde asterisk. It was about 5 minutes later, and we were just struggling up another slope, when we heard the sound of heavy footsteps behind us. Mr. Ambrose shot me a dark look. He didn't say anything, but he didn't need to. His look said it all. Faster. Another shot whistled over my head, and another, and another. The last one came so close that I could feel the air move as it whizzed past. Then came the sound of panting, and I knew they were catching up. Quickly, I risked a glance over my shoulder. There they were, halfway up the hill, only a few dozen yards behind us. The red and gold of their uniforms shimmered menacingly in the light of the torches they carried, the steel of their rifles adding another deadly color to the mix of blood red and gold. They were 3 in number, and were dashing forward at a dead run. One of them in particular, a slim-built fellow who looked as if he were used to running from Bristol to Bath and back again every morning before breakfast, seemed intent on sinking his claws into us. He was catching up fast. We'll never get away from 'em, I panted. They'll get us. No, they won't, was Mr. Ambrose's cool reply. Not if we make it to the top of the hill in time. How? Be quiet and move, faster, and he started shoving down the handle twice as fast as before. Now, even his breathing sounded a little labored. A single drop of sweat appeared on his chiseled forehead and ran down the side, disappearing into his collar. Ha, so he is human after all, not some inanimate statue into which the god of Mammon has breathed life by accident. Unfortunately, I wasn't a living statue either. My tortured, aching muscles made my humanity all too clear to me. Gripping the handle more tightly so my slippery hands wouldn't lose the grip on it, I tried to keep up with his insane tempo. Think of Joan of Arc, I told myself. She threw an entire invasion of men out of her country, and you were going to be defeated by a stinking mining cart. What are you, a baby? Well, at the moment I definitely felt like lying down and crying. Blinking the sweat out of my eyes, I stared past Mr. Ambrose and, in the dim light of the torches that our pursuers carried, could make out a dark black outline rising above us. The top of the hill. I couldn't tell. It seemed miles away yet, but in the gloom, distances were impossible to gauge. Behind us, the sound of panting breath was growing louder. Stop. The shouted command from behind me came so suddenly, and sounded so near, it nearly made my heart jump out of my chest. Stop or we'll shoot. How very kind of you to warn us. Of course, you have already shot at us, so it's not much of a warning, but still, very thoughtful. Don't stop, hissed Mr. Ambrose. Of course not. What do you take me for? An idiot. Silence. Very meaningful silence. Well, thanks so much. I growled. I did not say anything, Mr. Linton. You didn't have to, sir. You were thinking loud and clear. Just keep moving, Mr. Lynn. The crack of a shot cut off his words brutally. It was so loud, so terribly near now that my ears stung from the impact of the sound. Mr. Ambrose's eyes burned into mine, and again I could read the same message in them. Faster. Faster. And I did move faster. Up and down and up and down. The repetitive movement sent shocks of pain up my tired arms and down my back. I kept going, but didn't know how long it would be before I collapsed again. Even my thoughts of Joan of Arc didn't comfort me anymore. Surely, beating an army of men had to be easier than this. There probably was some way to just hoodwink the stupid fools into falling on their own swords. But a mine cart was devious, and unrelenting. Up, down, down. And then, we were suddenly rolling forward easily, and I nearly fell forward as the cart began to gather speed, without any help from me, and plunged downwards. Yes. We've done it. Let go, Mr. Linton. Let go. I couldn't. My hands were glued to the handle, my eyes half closed with exhaustion. Another pair of hands gripped mine and slowly pried them loose. Let go. We have to lie down. Now. Lie down. But why? The answer to my question came a second later, when 2 shots echoed through the tunnel. Something heavy collided with me, throwing me to the floor and landing on top of me. Something. No, somebody familiar. Mr. Ambrose. They're shooting, he told me in his cool, precise tone. They have a better angle now, from above. Stay absolutely still. Oh no, I plan on running a marathon. After all, I feel so rested right now. I didn't say anything, though. I couldn't have moved a muscle if I had wanted to, not even my lips. And I didn't want to, really. To lie on the rough wood, his arms wrapped tightly around me, felt very comfortable for some reason. But why is he lying on top of you? Good question. It was almost as if he were shielding me from the gunfire. But that couldn't be. That was something only the heroes in Penny Dreadfuls did if they happened to be in love with the heroine. The next shot sounded farther away. The one after that could hardly be heard. We were gathering speed now. I could feel it from the wind rushing past us, tickling my face. We were really getting away. Really and truly. Why? My voice sounded like a crow with a cold. I cleared my throat and tried again. Why aren't they following us? Oh, they will, eventually, Mr. Ambrose said in a dry tone. But they jumped off the cart halfway up the last hill, in order to run after us. It will have rolled downhill by now. They'll have to push it up all the way before they can follow us. That will take time. We have a good head start. There was a last, faint echo of a gunshot, but even I, with my limited knowledge of firearms, knew it didn't have a hope of hitting us anymore. We were much too far away by now, the darkness gathering around us. The distant red flicker of torches subsided into grey gloom, and then the grey turned to black, and the last noises of our pursuers faded. All noise faded, except for the song of wheels on the rails, the whistling of the wind in my hair, and Mr. Ambrose's breathing. We were alone. We should get up and try to find a light, try to find out where we were, maybe. We should definitely get out of this embarrassing position. Mr. Ambrose lying on top of me, his arms pressing me to the floor. Yes, that was definitely something we should do. But then, why didn't he get up? Why don't you get up yourself, Lily? You still have 2 arms and 2 legs, don't you? I checked, just to make sure. Yes, all the necessary limbs were still attached, and hurting like hell. He might be lying on top of me, but I could have pushed him away, or tried to slide out from under him, or said something to him. Yet I did not. I simply lay there, his body pressing against mine in a way that made me ache to pull him even closer and put my arms around him. I could feel his breath on my cheek. He was so close, almost close enough to key. We should get up, he said. His voice sounded strange, rough even. It still was his usual cool tone, and yet, it wasn't. Yes, I agreed. Neither of us moved. Well, he said, what are you waiting for, Mr. Linton? Excuse me, sir, but what are you waiting for? You are the one lying on top. On top of me, the second time in a row. But I didn't dare say these words aloud. They made heat rush to my face just thinking them. Was it just coincidence that we always seemed to end up like this? Well, I asked, what are you waiting for? Just wasting time lying here. Knowledge is power, is time is money, isn't it? He was silent for a moment. You remembered, Mr. Linton? Of course, sir. Before I knew what happened, my hand had reached out and touched his face. Bloody traitorous limb, you're a very memorable man. Another moment of silence. A long one. A really, really long one. Then his weight was suddenly lifted off me, and his arms were gone. I gasped with surprise. You're right, of course, I heard his voice from high above. We have to get moving. I must have received a blow on the head when falling to the floor and been temporarily stunned. That is the only explanation for such unforgivable inactivity. Now, let's see. I could feel him climb past me, back into the metal container of the cart, and had to fight hard to suppress a sense of stinging disappointment. But why? Having a man so close had been highly improper, and against my every principle, and yet, now that he was gone, I wished him back. Bloody hell, Mr. Linton, look what I've found. His shout roused me from my dangerously unfeminist thoughts. I can't look, I pointed out, turning towards where his voice had come from. It's dark. Actually, I was aware of that, Mr. Linton. Suddenly, a light flared up, making me raise my hand instinctively to shield my eyes. How? I demanded, grasping for the edge of the cart for balance. The bright yellow shine forced its way through my fingers and, after the long time spent in utter blackness, almost made me dizzy. There is a wooden case with spare equipment attached to the back of the cart. I heard the voice of Mr. Ambrose from beyond the golden glow. A safety lamp, knife, flint, food, water. You can say what you like about Lord Dalgleish. Really? Well, then I'd like to point out that he is a pretentious, lying, bloodthirsty ball of slime. That was not meant as a prompt, Mr. Linton. Oh, sorry, sir. As I was saying, say what you like about Lord Dalgleish, but he does take all possible safety precautions. And this time, they worked to our advantage. Slowly, I lowered my hands from my eyes and let my eyes get used to the brightness. Slowly, I looked around, and for the first time since starting on this mad, muscle-tearing ride, actually paid attention to my surroundings. The orange glow of the safety lamp fell on rugged stone walls rushing past at a prodigious speed. They rose up about 3 meters, forming a vaulted ceiling above our heads. Both in front of and behind us, the tunnel disappeared into seemingly endless darkness, not giving away any of its secrets about where it would lead. For the moment, I couldn't bring myself to care very much, as long as it brought us away from hostile men with guns. What I did care about was the ice-cold wind in my face, making my sweat-drenched clothes feel as if they would freeze any second. My teeth began to chatter. All right, maybe I cared a little bit. Come. Suddenly, Mr. Ambrose was beside me, nodding towards the rear of the cart. Get into the container. It will shield you from the wind. He was right. The metal was cold to sit on, but it was a relief to have the biting wind out of my face. And there was an old sack in the metal container. The material was rough, but warm, and we huddled together, pulling it around us. Where do you suppose the tunnel leads? I asked, after a while. As I said before, I smelled sea air from down there. I still catch a whiff of it now and again. Also, the tunnel is going down, and we started at the center on the island, inside a mountain. This all would support my theory that the tunnel leads to the coast. As the last words left his mouth, the scene around us suddenly changed. Where before there had only been the stone walls of the tunnel rushing past, there now gaped a black opening. For just a moment I glimpsed another tunnel, and another set of rails splitting off from the ones we were riding on and heading down the other way. It was gone as quickly as it had come. I hesitated for a moment. And how do you know that that wasn't the way which leads to the coast? I asked, my voice unusually timid. I don't. His voice wasn't timid at all. It was as cool and composed as a cucumber on ice. But since this car does not have brakes and is going too fast for us to change direction, it is of little consequence. Cheese. Excuse me, sir. I asked you whether you want some cheese. He held out a piece of something yellowish towards me. Or bread. There are some emergency rations in the container in which I found the lamp. Again, I hesitated. We were supposed to be in a desperate rush to escape our enemies. That hardly seemed the right time to be eating cheese. But then, I had worked harder today than ever before in my life, and a chocolate croissant wasn't much to go on. Some bread, please, sir. Here. He handed me a neatly cut off piece, and took another for himself. We sat in the semi-darkness and ate in silence. The bread was dark and coarse, but I didn't really mind. It was hearty and gave me new energy. Only after a while did I notice that Mr. Ambrose was watching me. In the shadowy half-light, the planes of his perfect, stony face stood out more sharply than ever. The look in his dark eyes as he watched me nibbling on a piece of cheese made my skin tingle. What is it? I asked. What is what, Mr. Linton? Why are you looking at me like that? And don't you dare deny it, because you are looking at me, and not like you normally look at me. Indeed, he cocked his head. How do I normally look at you? Like you want to strangle me and ship my body to Antarctica. And don't try to distract me. I want to know why you were staring at me. Silence. Why were you staring at me? Please, sir. Well, his cool voice was hesitant, his eyes calculating. You don't seem to mind the bread much. Most people like you would have turned their nose up at brown bread. My lips twitched. Most ladies. Was that what you were going to say? Silence. I shrugged. Most ladies would have turned up the nose at being shot at, too. I imagine so, Mr. Linton. Was the scant light playing tricks on me? Yes, that had to be it. How else could it be that I thought one corner of Mr. Ambrose's mouth turned up into a quarter smile, for just a second? I'm used to tough food, sir. I live with my uncle, and the only thing he ever puts on the table are potatoes, bread and cheese. Sounds like a sensible man, your uncle. He's one of the greatest misers in the world. You'd like him. Again I saw the trick of the light, that play of the safety lamp's illumination on Mr. Ambrose's face that made it almost seem as if he was smiling. Quickly, I looked away. You know, I said, this is not at all how I imagined a minecart chase. How did you imagine it, Mr. Linton? I don't know. More exciting, less cheesy. Ponderously, I took another bite. The cheese really tasted quite good, once you got used to it. Those French really had a culinary talent. Well, I think I can promise you some excitement soon enough, Mr. Ambrose told me, dryly. Once we reach the end of the tunnel, we have to manage to get on a ship before they catch up with us. If we don't get to one in time. His voice trailed off, but I didn't need him to finish the sentence. I knew. We lapsed into silence for a while. I was busy with eating, and Mr. Ambrose, who only took an occasional bite now and then, seemed to be very busy staring at the tunnel floor, as if the stone whizzing by told a fascinating story. I was right, he said, suddenly. This tunnel leads to the sea. We are not that far away from the exit anymore. Startled, I looked up. How do you know? Do you see this, and this? He pointed at the floor, and I barely managed to catch a blurry glimpse of a small stone before we rushed past. What about it? Looked just like a pebble to me. The cool look he gave me made me shut my mouth. This pebble was quartzite, not the same type of stone as the mountain around us. Such pebbles are only found on beaches. They must have been accidentally carried up by soldiers who passed this way from further down, because up at the mountain there was not a single quartzite anywhere in sight. He sounded as if he had spent his life burrowing through all kinds of different rock and knew all of them by name. I wanted to open my mouth to argue, but then I remembered the ease with which he had pushed the mining cart, his familiarity with the functioning of a draisine, and I shut my mouth again. Somehow, I was suddenly certain he knew what he was talking about. If you looked at his chiseled granite face, you simply had to believe that he knew all there was to know about stone. But will we get to the exit fast enough? I asked, before Dalglish's men catch up with us. As I said, Mr. Linton, we have a good head start. But don't you think they'll catch up with us quickly once they've pushed their cart to the top and roll downhill, after us? I asked. After all, they're 3, and we're only 2. Their added weight should make them move a lot faster. Yes, they're 3, and we are only 2, that is true, agreed Mr. Ambrose. But still, the difference in weight might not be as great as you might Imer. He eyed me, and then suddenly lapsed into silence. A very lengthy silence, and, for him, a very healthy one. Had he continued his sentence, I would not have been responsible for my actions. I gave him my most fiery glare. There will be a difference in weight, I huffed, and pushed him away, sliding out from under the sack. A very great difference in weight. Just you wait and see, they will catch up with us fast. Asterisk tilde asterisk tilde asterisk asterisk tilde asterisk tilde asterisk 10 minutes. 20 minutes. I glared morosely at the tunnel walls, doing my best to avoid looking at him. Do you hear anything? I asked. No. I could have sworn I heard voices behind us. I didn't hear anything, Mr. Linton. Silence. They should have caught up with us long ago. How long has it been since we left them behind? Exactly 25 minutes and 37 seconds, Mr. Linton. It can't be that long already. But it is, Mr. Linton. Silence. Calm silence from him, grumpy silence from me. Suddenly, my ears pricked up. Do you hear that? I demanded. Mr. Linton, I told you, they are not. Not from behind. From there. Anxiously, I clambered to my feet and pointed into the darkness ahead of us, only that it was not complete darkness anymore. There was a tiny point of light moving towards us, getting bigger as it approached. But not white light, not the light of day. Suddenly, Mr. Ambrose appeared beside me. His eyes were as dark as the bottom of the ocean, his mouth pressed into a grim line. Well, it was always pressed into a grim line, but now it was a very, very grim line. What do you think it could be? I asked. The moment the words were out of my mouth, I suddenly heard the noise I had been both dreading and hoping for, the faint squeak of a mine cart's wheels. But it wasn't coming from behind. It was approaching from ahead of us, from where the light was. Prepare yourself, Mr. Ambrose commanded, reaching into his jacket and drawing out something hard and shiny. I only caught a glimpse of the metal barrel of a gun before it disappeared again, hidden behind his left hand, where it was easily accessible. We will have company, soon. Shots in the dark. You have a firearm? I demanded, my breath catching. He regarded me with supreme disdain. Sir, I hurriedly tagged on. Of course I have a firearm, Mr. Linton. Do you think I would go into a situation such as this without being prepared? But why didn't you use it on the soldiers before? Because they had long-range weapons and could have shot me long before I could have returned the favor. You don't bring a rifle on an infiltration. It is cumbersome and slow to load. This, he patted the weapon hidden behind his hand, is a Colt Patterson improved model prototype with loading lever, 36 caliber. If our friend there, he nodded towards the approaching light, gets close enough, he will be swiftly and terminally perforated. Meaning, sir. Meaning that I will put a hole in his head, Mr. Linton. I threw a worried glance at the walls of the tunnel, which were still rushing past in a blur, then directed my gaze at the light that was approaching alarmingly fast. I hope we survive long enough to have to worry about fighting him. If we keep going at this pace, we'll probably die when we ram into him. We're moving too fast and, as you said, this thing has got no brakes. I doubt it'll come to a collision. Look, and he raised the safety lamp high over his head, pointing to something beside the cart I hadn't seen before, a set of tracks, running parallel to our own. Why have two sets of rails in a mine? The confusion in my voice was evident. One for sending up the salt, one for sending down empty carts again. It makes sense. Well, I suppose you're right, and you think he's on the other set of tracks. Yes, but what, sir? But be ready to jump, just in case I'm wrong. How very comforting. As we raced closer, I could see that indeed he was not on another set of tracks. But there was no need for me to jump, either. Long before we reached the other mining cart, the tracks flattened out. We began to slow down, rolling along the track at a leisurely pace. Now we could see that the other mining cart hadn't, in fact, been moving towards us. It had only seemed that way because we had been catching up so fast. It was, in fact, moving in the same direction as we, only at a considerably slower pace. A single, rather fat man, whose red uniform and bushy white beard made him look distinctly harmless, was gripping the handle of the draisine. As we came nearer, he raised his hand. Mr. Ambrose raised a hand, too, the one with his gun in it. I noticed just in time to grab it and push it down again. No, I hissed. He gave me a don't interrupt my important business look, which I completely ignored. I clung to his arm tenaciously. Why not, Mr. Linton? Because he hasn't got a gun in his hand, sir. He might be going for one, Mr. Linton. Then wait until he does, sir. You can't shoot an unarmed man. That, Mr. Linton, is usually the wiser and more effective policy. Ahoy there, the man called, waving genially in our direction. Caught up to me and my little ship on wheels, have you? Well, I ain't the fastest, I got to admit that. See, he didn't want to shoot. He just wanted to wave at us. For now, Mr. Linton. Suddenly, the old soldier let go of the end of the seesaw with which he had been pushing along his cart and jumped off. I'm going to take a little rest and have my supper, he announced, appearing perfectly content to let the draisine stand where it was. Want to join me? I looked at Mr. Ambrose. Don't even think about saying yes, Mr. Linton, he hissed. We're being chased by a whole army of soldiers. We don't have time for supper. I wasn't going to say yes, sir, I snapped back, miffed. I was going to ask how we'll get past him without arousing suspicion. He's blocking the way. I had noticed as much, Mr. Linton. Do you still object to my shooting him? Yes. Mr. Ambrose gnashed his teeth in silence, and didn't answer. It was obvious that of all the dangers that we could encounter on our wild chase for survival, he hadn't factored in a jolly old fellow asking us to stop for supper. Well, neither had I, to be perfectly honest. You just didn't reckon with those kinds of things when you were hunted by a horde of evil villains. Everybody was supposed to be chasing after you in a panic, not cheerfully unpacking sausages and a bottle of ale. The white-bearded fellow pulled out a second bottle from the sack slung over his back and held it out to us. We were only a few yards away from him now, and our draisine slowly came to a halt. Want to try it? It's a damn fine brew, if I do say so myself. The name's Ben, by the way. No, Mr. Ambrose bit out, jumping off the draisine and striding towards the old man. I assure you, it is. My mother picked it out. Father was never the creative one, so she picked all our names. Ben for me, and Tom and Elsie for my. I meant, Mr. Ambrose said, enunciating each arctic syllable, no thank you, I do not wish to partake of your alcoholic drink. And neither does my friend. Will you be so kind as to move your minecart out of the way, so we can continue? We have schedule to keep. Oh, today's youth. Old Ben sighed and took a large swig of ale. Always in a hurry, always in a hurry. You got to take a breath, youngsters, and learn how to relax. All this panicking will kill you before you get old, you know. Actually, I said, throwing an anxious glance over my shoulder, we're trying to avoid getting killed before we're old. Old Ben didn't seem to hear that. He was busy carving up a sausage, holding one slice out to Mr. Ambrose, who looked down at it as if it were a rotten rat's carcass. I really must insist, sir, that you, he began. There they are. The shout cut him off abruptly and made us all look back up the hill, from where we had come. There was a yelp from old Ben, who had probably cut his finger instead of the sausage. But I didn't pay attention, nor did Mr. Ambrose. We only had eyes for the draisine with all three soldiers on board, racing downhill at a dangerous tempo. Dangerous for them, and for us. Without wasting another word, Mr. Ambrose stepped up beside old Ben's draisine and heaved. With a strangled groan, half from his throat, half from the protesting metal and wood, the vehicle keeled over, and everything that had been inside toppled onto the tunnel floor. Hey, old Ben rose from his sitting position, waving his sausage around threateningly. Now, look here young fellow, you can't just. I didn't hear any more. Mr. Ambrose came running towards me. He jumped onto our draisine and uttered a single, decisive word, move. Knowing all too well what he meant, I jumped on, gripped one end of the seesaw, and pushed. We shot forward, past old Ben and his bloody sausage, towards what? Freedom, escape. Get them, get them. A shot whistled over my head, and I ducked, my heart hammering faster. Well, at least we were rushing away from the heavily armed hunting party, that much was sure. The draisine tilted, and off we went down another decline. Hands off the seesaw, Mr. Ambrose commanded. Get down and stay out of sight. He didn't follow his own advice. Instead, he knelt down right behind the mine cart container and laid the barrel of his gun on top of the metal, narrowing his eyes. I was beside him in a flash. What are you doing, sir? I demanded. I thought I told you to stay out of sight, Mr. Linton. I cupped one hand behind an ear in a mock gesture. Excuse me, the wind is so loud I hardly understand what you are saying. You want me to stay by your side? Out of sight, Mr. Linton. Out of sight. By your side it is, then, sir. Another shot whistled over our heads. Mr. Ambrose didn't move an inch. Only the barrel of his gun made a minuscule movement, going half an inch upwards. He didn't look at me. You, Mr. Linton, are the most irritating personage I have ever encountered in my life. If you must risk getting shot, do it quietly. I am trying to concentrate. What are you doing, sir? I mentioned quietude just now. I'll be quiet if you tell me what you are doing. I am trying to shoot those inconsiderate gentlemen behind us, but I thought you said they were too far away to be hit with a revolver. Suddenly, an ear-splitting explosion jarred my skull. It threw me backwards so hard I smashed painfully into the wood of the drazine's floor. If the other gunshots had been loud, this was beyond loud, because it came from right beside me. A flash of light flared up at the mouth of Mr. Ambrose's revolver, and from somewhere up the tunnel I heard a roar, mingled with curses. Mr. Ambrose turned to me, his sea-colored eyes glinting in the gloom. They were before, he said. No longer. They're catching up. Stay down. For once, I could find no words to reply. I didn't know much about shooting, but I knew enough to guess that this had been one hell of a shot. A much better one than any city financier should be capable of. But then, I had already known that Mr. Ambrose was more than that. Much more. 2 gunshots answered him out of the darkness. They slammed into the tunnel wall not far above our heads, and at the same moment, I saw grim satisfaction flashing in Mr. Ambrose's eyes. Why do you look so content? I groaned. They nearly hit us. Yes. With a soft click, he rotated the cylinder of his revolver. The next bullet was in place, but only twice. The third man wasn't shooting. The meaning of his words came to me in a rush. The man had to be gravely wounded, or dead. For a long moment, I wondered if that should bother me. It probably should. I knew that Ella would be weeping or screaming in terror in my place. But all I felt was excitement. Can you teach me to shoot like that? Mr. Ambrose's hand, resting on the wall of the metal container again, jerked, and his next shot flew wide of the mark. What? He hissed. Can you teach me to shoot? I'd like to learn. A shot hit the metal wall of the draisine, which reverberated like a church bell. Mr. Ambrose ducked, as a second shot raced over his head. You cannot be serious, he hissed. Of course I am, sir. Wouldn't it be useful to have some more firepower right now? But you were a... Yes. Nothing, Mr. Linton. My eyes sparked. You were about to admit that I am female. Nothing of the kind, Mr. Linton. Stop with the Mr. already. I am a girl, and girls could use guns just as well as men, if somebody took the trouble to teach them. Another shot hit the draisine, and another. This is hardly the right time to discuss gender politics, Mr. Linton. Mr. Ambrose glared at me with a cold intensity that would have sent a pack of lions running for the hills. I didn't back down an inch. Indeed, and why not, sir? Because, he said in a deliberate voice, we are about to reach the end of the tunnel. And when we do, we need to run. My head whirled around, and light stung my eyes. He was right. I had been so focused on him and the men who were after us that I hadn't noticed how the tunnel around us had become steadily brighter and brighter. It took my eyes a few seconds to adjust. When they had, I could make out a patch of bright blue. Sky. No, it glittered. The sea. The Mediterranean. Dear God, the tunnel didn't open onto the sea, did it? I had a brief flash of Mr. Ambrose and me plunging 300 feet to our deaths, to provide a meal for the lobsters of the island, eager to take revenge on humans for the massacre the cooks of France had committed among their people. Not a jolly thought, especially since I hadn't eaten a single lobster in my life. Suddenly, though, there was brown and green mixed in with the blue. I caught the blurred forms of bushes and grass. Grass didn't grow on the Mediterranean. Huzzah! Behind me, another shot from Mr. Ambrose's revolver ripped the air apart. Quickly, I pressed my hands to my ears. My head was beginning to hurt. Why don't you take your own advice, sir, and do that more quietly? I am afraid nobody has yet invented a noiseless gun, Mr. Linton. How disappointing. He didn't even glance at me, which, under the circumstances, I suppose I could understand. His eyes were firmly trained on our pursuers. Back to the matter at hand, Mr. Linton. Do you see the exit? Yes. Is it far ahead? No, I don't think so. I growled. These aren't the best circumstances to judge distances, though. I don't have a yardstick, and I've never sat on a draisine racing downhill in a mining tunnel with shooting maniacs right behind me, before. You don't say. What do you see outside? Why don't you look yourself, sir? There's this small matter of me trying to shoot our pursuers before they shoot us. It is distracting me slightly. Now, what do you see? I squinted in the direction of the opening again. The light outside was still so bright in comparison with the tunnel's gloom that I could hardly make out anything. Some bushes, I think. Grass. Good. As soon as we leave the tunnel, we are going to throw ourselves into those bushes. To disrupt the nests of innocent nightingales, sir. To cushion our fall, Mr. Linton. Cover your face with your arms so your eyes won't be stabbed by a branch. And, be careful. I had just opened my mouth for a witty comeback, but closed it again. Had I heard right, Mr. Rickard Ambrose had just wasted valuable time and breath telling me to be careful. Not only that, but he had sounded genuinely concerned. Could it be that he? Another gunshot sheared through my half-finished thought. Hurriedly, I turned my gaze from Mr. Ambrose to the approaching exit. I had to keep an eye on it. He was guarding our backs, making sure those sons of bachelors didn't get us. I had to do my part. We're getting close, I announced. Sweat had started to bead on my forehead again, although the air in the tunnel was still icy, and I was just sitting, doing nothing, only watching. On the count of 3 we have to jump. He gave a grunt, and fired again. I took a deep breath. 1, I called. 2 more shots burst from his revolver, and the enemy answered.